Brother Jones, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you were able to join this conversation because I really want to get your perspective. And so, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do? And
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Alexander Jones, the perspective I'm coming from is active duty military. And being active duty military here located in the Washington, D.C. area to where I've experienced two different sides of active duty military, though. So our first location that I was at was in California, and that was more of a general population, if you will, of military, to where you are in what we consider just the fleet side. So now I am elevated to basically a individual side of active duty, to where you still have a lot of the same duties and you still have similar schedules as you would across the board, because a lot of your training is the same, your qualifications are the same, but you just correspond and schedule differently as far as what your duties are these days. So your job has kind of taken you to a good place to where you are in different locations, less of a formation or a group, and more individually by yourself now, basically.
fantastic. Thank you for that, brother. And so let me pose this next question to you, right? And so
Yes, sir.
as W.B. Du Bois talked about this ideology of double consciousness, right? And so to be Black and be a man within America. And so in this context of the current pandemic, the current, whatever you want to call it that we're in, you serve as both an African-American male, but you also serve within the armed forces. So can you talk a little bit about the dichotomy between those two identities, and like how do you identify within those two spaces?
Yes, it's a thought that circulates your mind every day, because you go through your own challenges to deserve to wear your respective uniform, right? You are prideful of the uniform that you wear, and you are focused on upholding the representation that you have of that uniform. But at some part of the day, you take that uniform off. At some part of the day, you have to walk into a situation where you are you're not wearing that uniform, and you're back to the same looks or the same feelings that you had experienced before you were able to put that uniform on. So that never leaves you, right? That never gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I've elevated my life because of this accomplishment, but you're reminded every day that you're still the same Black male and Black woman that you experienced growing up, that your family experiences every day now, right? You get applause and you get thank you for your service, being active in reserve duty, just being a part of the armed forces. But it makes you cherish the feeling that you have when you take the uniform off a lot more, and it doesn't leave you once you have the uniform on. And the reason why I say that is because I've always been very prideful of my family first, right? Because I was able to experience the experiences of my uncle and my father and the men of my family that I looked at as giants, right? Well, I seen their challenges. I seen their stress. I seen what their mind ponders about as we're sitting in down south North Carolina on the back of a porch or on the front of a porch, and you would simply ask the question of, hey, how are you doing today, right? And this is in my adult life that I would ask these questions to my father or my uncle or so, and they would begin to have real conversations with me about their stress. And you realize that even though you have an opportunity to be thanked for a position while you're in uniform, well, you never lose the worries of what your father or your brother or your cousin could be immediately going through all the time, you know.
All right, so Mike, I want to pose this next question to you. So similar to myself, you've mentored a slew of young Black boys into damn near manhood. We're in the middle of practically a recession, and we're in the middle of the worst pandemic that the world has ever seen. So, what conversation are you having with your students? What conversations are you having with your basketball players about, how to navigate this space? Because for a lot of them, like, first of all, unemployment is at 40 million. This country's never broke a million in unemployment, yet alone 40 million. And so, like, what questions and what conversations are we having with our young Black men about what we're currently living through and what's going on?
Yeah. That's a good question. That's a big ass question, right? I'll first start off by saying there's not one conversation that we're having. Everything is on the table. Everything is up for discussion. Everything is up for debate. And really, Will, I just I call them and do what we do in our program. We do wellness checks with our students right now while we're distance learning. And so really we allow them to just kind of share with what's going on in their world and what maybe they're happy about, frustrated about, want to change. And from there, then we just have the conversation. And, being a counselor, life coach, so I have some skills and some tools to ask probing questions, but also help them be solution focused as well as we're having those dialogues and conversations. But really about just trying to figure out where they are mentally. And then if there's things that I can help out with, some of the things I'm not able to, right? If they ask me for finances, I am, I'm in the same pandemic like everybody else. So I'm trying to make sure that I can manage those things. But if I got resources that I can provide, I make sure I connect them up with those resources. But really, people just want to know that you care about them, right? That's the really bottom line piece. So they are, they get excited when you call and check in on them. One thing that I'm doing with our basketball players for the basketball team is that there's these these apps that you have. And so I've been doing weekly challenges. So like 1 week we had like a dribbling challenge. How many dribbles can you do this specific dribble without making a mistake? And then if they got to add them up throughout the week. And then at the end, I would send a gift card to the winner of that challenge. So they got to show videos and videos. So it's a way of trying to keep them engaged, because while we are, and I hate that they use the term social distancing, because it's not really social distancing. We should be talking about physical distancing. We shouldn't be distancing ourselves socially from each other, because we need to have constant communication with each other. So maybe while we're physically distancing, we still can be social. And so I was trying to utilize that program to keep it social. They can kind of, poke fun at each other like we do in basketball practice and whatever, and mess around while they're making mistakes and whatnot. But a way to keep them engaged. The other piece is, there's, as you talked about, the unemployment rate, right? So now we got some young people who have taken on adult responsibilities. So they may have had jobs, and now they got to take on more work hours. And the crazy part about this is, we are now calling these industries essential workers, right? We didn't call them that at first. And we surely didn't pay them like they were essential workers. But now we're calling them essential workers, and we have to realize that a lot of our people of color are the ones that's on the front lines in those essential positions, right? Being at the grocery stores, factories, right? All those different professions that we didn't necessarily, quote unquote, care about. Now we know, we need those in order to survive in this time. And that also puts a whole lot of pressure of anxiety and worrisome on the families, because now I'm out in the world all the time and not aware if I'm contracting COVID, if I'm bringing it home, right? All of those things start to pile up. And we know that any pandemic, any health issue that comes around is going to impact Black folks at a disproportionate rate than anyone else. So we got to be mindful of those things. And,
thank you for that. So the next question I want to pose this, Trey, first to you, and then Lieutenant Boyd to you, and Mike and Alex, feel free to jump in. But we all have, I have a fiance, you all have wives, right? And so this is every day, specifically for our law enforcement, every day you walk out that door, I can believe that your significant others, it's going through their mind, Lord, cover him like the blood of Jesus. Like, please send him back home to me. And so what conversations are you having with your spouses about, what's currently going on? What conversations are you, engaging in to not only like settle them and make sure that, they know that you're going to be okay, but to, in essence, to settle yourself. Because sometimes, like we, as men, specifically as Black men, we put on this macho exterior, but like, this is some scary ass times. And so what conversations are you having to like ensure that not only she's okay, but you're okay as well? So Trey, if you want to start?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, for me and my wife, man, the good thing is that my wife has been in my life all the time that I've been in law enforcement. I've known her long enough where she's known this is something I've always wanted to do since I was, I can count like 7 years old. So this is not anything that is foreign to her. I think that is a very good thing to have, is that someone who knows where you're headed. So she's already been preparing herself even before she, like, because we were best friends before. So even as a best friend, it was like, oh yeah, he's gonna do law enforcement. So as my wife is like, oh, he's doing law enforcement, it's like, it's not a change, but the conversations we have is that I explain to her my job. I'm not one of those people who try to hide what I do or be like, oh yeah, this is top secret. Like, no, you can't know this. Nah, it ain't all that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey babe, this is what I'm doing today, or this is what my job consists of. You know what I'm saying? So she can be exposed to it, because I want her to feel that anxiety. I want her to feel that emotion, because the more she feels it, just like with everything else, we become desensitized to it. And not in a bad way, right? We can become desensitized to it. Well, I'm not worried about you, but now I'm like, I know you're going to come home, but also like, I can pray for you without feeling that stress of like, oh, is he going to come home? You know what I'm saying? So my wife is one of those people, she was anti-gun before we got married. Now she wants to go to the range more than I do. Why? It's because when you introduce somebody to something that the world says, oh, this is scary, or this is bad, or this is something I don't want to deal with, if our minds are there, but then we have somebody to open our minds to, it's like, oh, it's not bad. It's just they told us to be away from it, so it seemed like something that was scary that we were just unknowledgeable about, right? Most people, the fear of the unknown, and that's what that is. So to set out that fear and to show them what I do, show her what I do, show her the type of job I do, show her that I'm okay. Her being okay, I'm okay. I always know I'm coming home. You know what I'm saying?
Like Trey was saying, my wife was with me for a long time, so she knew that police is my passion and my love. But my wife is a heavy praying woman. She very, 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 very. I mean, sometimes that she see me come in. I mean, I remember one time, I was having a flashback from the Nia Smith incident. And it got to me because, and I started crying in front of her. And she know how I am, like, she just started praying. So, we had those conversations. She's somebody, she asked me how my day, and she can tell by my body language, how I'm, okay, all right, what's really wrong? So with that, for me, it's more of, I try not to bring work home too much. I try to dedicate that time to my kids and keep it away from them. But like I said, man, my wife, she's really understanding of my job. Now she's like, be careful. I'm in a different atmosphere than I was, at Central. So she know that I'm not on the street. She know I'm admin now. So I'm on a desk, but can be called out anytime. But so she's more relaxed now, because when I was first out there, she was like, can you calm down? Because you got people to come home to. Because I was always trying to get in stuff. But now we talk about it. She understands. She knows it's my passion. And she just like, be careful. And I just take extra steps now, to where I used to just go home in a full uniform. I used to wear everything, now I kind of, take my shirt off or something, drive down the road.
Take myself off of mute here. Nika and I were best friends before we got together. So we got together, and the moment that we got together, we knew that, hey, let's understand and navigate this thing called life, right? Like, as best friends, we already understood our families. We understood our principles and just really what guided us was like our strong faith in Christ. So when we got together, I had immediately told her, I said, hey, I really want to pursue the military. I really want to pursue the military, finish my education with the military, paying for it. And I just laid this whole plan out there. What I didn't realize was how much Nika would charge me as a man when I wasn't really ready for it, right? So Nika held me accountable when I would just think that this was enough. And she was like, nah, you need to come here. And we take that with us throughout our experiences, and we never let our occupations embody who we are, right? So I am in active duty military, but I never think that is before Nika and I. So the experiences that I experienced with having to travel and having to navigate my way through different experiences in the military here in DC. Well, I talk with Nika about every single experience because she talks to me about all of her experiences working in finance here in DC, and we are able to really diagnose one another's feelings because we lay everything out on the table first, right? Like, hey, this is obviously what I experienced today. So next week when she's talking to me and something is deeply on my mind, she can navigate through my thoughts. She can understand what is getting to me sometimes more than I can. So a lot of times us being able to take on life like this, well, we are really building ourselves for the parents that we want to be, because we have already built ourselves to how we want to relate to one another through the stresses of work, but not just the stresses of work, through the stresses of who we are as young Black men and women, because that is a individual stress that I experience that I relate to her, and she experiences that she relates to me. It's a lot of things that she experiences just as a 20-some-odd-year-old Black female that is working in a high position, that she gets pressures that I don't really would immediately think about. But she says, no, you have to think about it like this. I am handling this situation the way I am because of the energy that I'm getting from this part, or from this, or the bias that I'm getting from this. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, I can understand why you would handle that way, right? So Nika's her own woman, just like I'm on my own man, but we are able to really guide one another, even though we're both the same age, right? And
I mean, I'll just jump in really quick. Obviously, I'm not in law enforcement or military, but the fear, and I'm not going to call it fear, but the normalized trauma that we face as Black men every day that we walk outside of our homes and our wives and family members face, it's been normalized so much that sometimes we may not really think about it, but it does come into play at certain times. You know, it's those times when you don't necessarily answer the phone right away when they call because you're busy doing something. And just for a split second, they think, uh-oh, did something happen to my son? Did something happen to my husband? Did something happen to my brother? Right? Those things come into play. Or you're supposed to be home at 12 o'clock and you don't mess around and get home until 1:30. And they're thinking like, oh, did he get pulled over? Is he in the hospital somewhere? Right? Those types of things are definitely alive and well. And, you know, it's stuff that we are working through like anybody else. But just trying to be mindful to answer those phone calls or send those messages. Say, hey, I'm on a something call right now. I'll get back to you in a second. Just to kind of ease that. But yeah, that is normalized through the work of being a Black male in this society. Is that we know that when we walk outside our homes, that we got to put our armor on, and that armor is basically saying, how do I protect myself so that I can come back to this home at the end of the night?
Appreciate that. Well, brothers, I just want to thank you so much for taking time today to have this conversation. It was a very paramount conversation. I really hope people can take away from this. But before we end, I just want to give you all the opportunity to say any last words and any contact information. You know, people want to reach out to you, talk to you more so, like your different social media handles or anything like that. And so, Trey, we'll start with you, and then we'll go with Mike, Alex, and end up with Lieutenant Boyd.
Okay, so man, I'll just end with this, man. And it's not long, but just, you know, we have to continue having a conversation, and not with just with each other, but with each other first, and then we need to have the conversations with our white counterparts, right? Because of our initial reason for getting on here is what we're dealing with as Black people in a world where we're not appreciated, we're not loved, we're not seen, we're not heard, and so what we need to do is come together, right? We have to come together, figure out, okay, what is our action plans? What are we going to plan? What are we going to prioritize? What are we going to strategize, right? And then how are we going to go forward with that? And so that's how we move forward. And we have to get together and make sure that we're doing that, and not just in times of trouble or when someone gets killed, but when the times where nothing is going on, so that when these times happen, we can be ready to mobilize and get out there and help our people. And so you can reach me on at I am Trey Smith on Instagram.
Mike, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, no doubt. You can catch me on social media, everything Instagram or Twitter. It's gonna be at Critical Questioning. But the one thing that I'll say just to end with is the kids are watching. Everything that we're doing, little kids are watching. The young people in this world are watching, and they're sponges right now, so they're soaking everything up. And what we got to be mindful of is, do we want them to perpetuate what we're doing? And if we want them to perpetuate what we're doing, hopefully we're perpetuating something that's positive and not negative, right?
Absolutely. Thank you all, honestly, for having me as well. Alex C. Jones on Facebook, Smooth Jones on Instagram. My final words will honestly be something I take with me every day, is that it honestly costs you nothing to love or to hate. So, choose to love, because you may have children now, you may have children on the way, or you may plan to have children later. And what example would you truly want to tell your story? Because, your life is basically your documentary for your story to be read later by your children and the youth of tomorrow. So just like Brother Michael had mentioned, the kids are watching, but what lessons are they seeing you live throughout today that you may just be proving a point now, but is that point honestly worth explaining later?
Hey, can y'all hear me? Hey, what's up, Alex? Thank you all for having me, a part of this. Like I said earlier, we have to continue this dialogue. We just can't talk about it. While I said the block is hot, we have to continue to talk about it. We have to continue to talk to our counterparts who didn't grow in the same community as we grow in. I mean, we have to have that open dialogue through social media. I like that Will Smith quote. He said, racism, been around, now it's just being filmed. So now that we have social media, we can use everybody has a platform now. So we can use our platform to connect with one another and talk about these issues. For the children, I mean, for me on my end, I'm going to continue going to high schools, middle schools, and let them see a different light of what a police officer look like. Because like I said, both of my ears pierced. I have tattoos. I had I would have hair now, but it's gone. But just to keep talking to and challenging my counterparts, we have to build the relations with law enforcement and the community. Stop being laptop cops and get out and walk the beat of your community. Stop just waiting on call to call. Find out who is that merchant. Do he have kids? Find out who is that kid walking to school. Conversation. I mean, it's something that we have to do. It's something that I'm glad that the world is talking about it. I'm glad that, when I turn on Stephen A. Smith for Sports Center, I see, even down to LaVelle Moulton, everybody is holding everybody accountable. And that's what I think that's what was not lacking in the past. when an incident happened, a lot of people silent. A lot of people, okay, this too shall pass. But now it's like, you know, people talking about it. And I think we should keep the open dialogue. Thank y'all so much. Let me know when round 2, because we got to have a round 2. We can't just have one and keep it, you know. So we got to keep on doing this. And thank y'all for thinking about me. Much success to all you brothers, and let's be that change. Because like you said, we living for our kids and our future grandkids. You know, we want to leave this world a better place for them. You know, so that's it.